Hey everybody, this is Mark Smith, host of Digital Roughnecks. And today's episode, we're going to talk about my 2023 energy market predictions. This episode is sponsored by EPACheatSheet.com, where you can get 1,438 pages of new EPA regulations summarized into a nice 16-page PDF. Also, ProveZero.com, where we say turning net zero promises into net zero proof. So, 5 predictions. Strong energy demand. Regulations will hit producers hard. It's still hard to find qualified people. Proving emissions will become mandatory, and investing in automation will grow. Let's go through each one. So, energy demand. Now, Goldman Sachs, they believe a supply shortage and insufficient investment in new supply will drive a bumper year for the overall commodity market, but specifically energy as well. There's going to be new investments in oil, gas, metals, all kinds of stuff. Basically, the beginning of a new super cycle in commodities. I look for other things to confirm that, and we're seeing a small uptick, as you can see, over the next 3 years, 4 years actually, in oil demand. Okay, as the world grows, it continues to do what it does. And gas going up by even more over the next several years, natural gas. And then LNG consumption is going to jump 90%. Okay, so for those of you energy execs who are looking to get in the LNG market, that's going to grow by a lot. Obviously, what's going on in Europe and everything, demand for LNG is really high. Now, just some examples of that. Stories. Even in the new EPA regulations, EPA talks about estimating about 21,000 new upstream sites, right? And billions are being poured now back into the Permian Basin as new sites are appearing. Here's another case study of what's happening in Colorado. So PDC Energy just got approved for 464 new wells across 33,000 acres. They talked about investing $1.5 billion in drilling over the next 8 years. Part of the key was getting these new permits was their ability to say, hey, listen, when we build these out, we'll connect directly into the midstream pipelines. We're going to use electric drilling rigs. We're going to use zero emitting pneumatics. And advanced leak detection at well sites. Now, this happens to be something that we're very familiar with at Clean Connect. It's very advanced, computer vision, AI, LDAR, autonomous LDAR program. Now, the energy regulations. Okay, so a new EPA Quad O, B, and C is going to increase the frequency and quantity of sites. Now, I did a little math, and I estimate there's going to be 1.4 million more inspections needed, an increase of 471%, costing an estimated $831 million across U.S. operators. The new super emitter regulation is a game changer because it makes enforcement easier, right? You could fly a satellite over the U.S. every day looking for 100 kilogram per hour leaks. Again, the problem of midstream pipelines being approved by FERC is there's going to have to be some serious negotiation, all relating to regulations and trying to negotiate those environmental permits. The new methane greenhouse gas intensity reporting requirements. A new one popped up with the Inflation Reduction Act, OGMP 2.0 Level 5, which 75% of energy producers have sort of signed on to. And CDPHE Reg 22, that's the greenhouse gas intensity reporting. I believe it's going to become the template for these two above here. Okay? And I'll be getting more into that in other episodes. Look, permits are getting harder, but not impossible because of increased environmental regulations. Okay, so I'll talk about a couple ways that operators are. I just showed you PDC able to get permits. Okay, so it's still possible, right? One of the things that is happening with this methane intensity reporting is adding a couple layers of sophistication. To get intensity, of course, you have to measure your throughput, and you're also going to have some way of doing bottoms up and tops down reporting. Okay, and I'll be getting more to this in future episodes, but there's going to be more layers to your reporting to hit fully measured methane or greenhouse gas intensity. The Inflation Reduction Act put an actual tax associated with it. So I think there's going to be a lot more focus on figuring this out. Okay. Number 3, it's still hard to find qualified people. It was already hard to find people, but now there's going to be this increased demand for 2 to 7x increase in LDAR resources. In short, there just aren't enough bodies to throw at the problem, especially if you got to do more environmental type proof things. So really, increasing productivity through automation and AI really is going to become super key. Okay. The other thing that's happening is that there's this sort of, everyone wants proof of emissions, and really it's caused by activists who are sort of defunding fossil fuels, and then the states pushing back and saying, all right, well, we're going to defund organizations like BlackRock, okay? And so how are they going to meet in the middle, right? The way they're going to meet in the middle is by saying, all right, investors say, fine, I will give you capital, but I want proof that you're hitting your numbers. And there's all of these things called sustainably linked loans, okay? And all that really means is you can get capital and bonds and loans and other things, but you're going to have to prove your emissions, okay, more than you've ever had to prove before. And this whole idea that I mentioned before, the greenhouse gas or the methane intensity reporting will be key to that. We do have a project called ProveZero, which this episode is sponsored by, that helps with that. Now, one of the ways you can manage your risk is through automating compliance, operations, and safety. You'll see here this category of industrial automation and control. It's steadily growing, 10.1% compound annual growth rate. Operators are going to invest in automation technology that increases efficiency. Primary ROI is allowing operators building out new sites without hiring new operators, okay? And to clone their best operators to allow clones to do the work remotely on site. Environmental, regulatory, safety, preventative maintenance, human resources are all major risks where AI automation can help. One category of this is computer vision, and it's growing substantially, okay? So you're going to see big growth in using computer vision to help with this automation. So anyway, it's an area where that's happening, and we're very, very familiar with using computer vision to automate operations and even autonomous LDAR. An example of that is right here. So, this new regulations requires an increase in LDAR, okay, but finding and training qualified people is getting tougher than ever. You can use computer vision automation to help with that. Case study, Clean Connect is working with Colorado operators who are able to build out new sites, handle 6 times more LDAR without hiring any new people, all using computer vision automation. And it's allowing for more efficient operations because you could do way more remotely using computer vision and a lot less putting guys in trucks and driving out to sites. So with that, I mentioned the 2 sponsors, EPA Cheat Sheet, where I summarize 1,438 pages of new EPA Quad OBC regulations into a beautiful 16-page PDF, and you can get that at epacheatsheet.com. Also, ProveZero, where this project allows you to turn net zero promises into net zero proof by handling your methane intensity reporting and giving you an energy certificate on the blockchain. You can find out more at ProveZero.com. So with that, I'd like to wrap up this episode of 2023 predictions at Digital Roughnecks.